Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. My name, of course, is Obita Potato, and here we check out the latest and the greatest strategy games each and every day of the week. I have played Frostpunk 2, and I'm here to tell you all about it. Spoiler alert, it is gonna be great. This is the first ever look at Chapter 1 of Frostpunk 2. I was provided with footage by 11-Bit Studios after I played Frostpunk 2 in Poland, and yeah, I'm gonna break down exactly what the heck is going on. It's gonna be good. Frostpunk. I mean, it is the most nerve-wracking, emotional, city-building, survival strategy game ever. And that's just the original. Frostpunk 2 takes everything to a brand new level. There was a beta a few weeks ago, but that did not feature any of the narrative elements of the Frostpunk 2 game. So this really is the sort of first look at what the main sort of story mode of Frostpunk is going to look like. Now, Frostpunk is one of the only games that I think has captured a sort of sense of tension and narrative in a strategy game. Usually, I despise it when strategy games end up with narrative, because it's always a sort of little afterthought. Frostpunk 2, it takes the narrative and it takes it right to the heart of the game. So anyway, welcome to New London. This is where we are going to be spending our first moments in the Frostpunk 2 game. And you start with a city that is already developed. There is a whole bunch of expansion that you are able to do sort of straight off the bat, but you start with something that has been going for a little while. There is a sense of sort of continuity to Frostpunk from Frostpunk 1 to Frostpunk 2. And if there was one way that I could sum up the major differences between Frostpunk 1 and Frostpunk 2, it would be that Frostpunk 1 was all about micromanagement, whereas Frostpunk 2 is all about macromanagement. If you have a little look up in the top right-hand corner, you can see that we're dealing with a population of 8,000 people. We're not dealing, with single people. We are dealing with many, many thousands. The responsibilities and indeed the sort of pressures have only grown since the last game. So, again, this game differs wildly from the first one. I think the developers have taken a really sort of interesting direction. We can see at a glance all of the resources that are around New London, and all of the resources can be extracted through these districts. We've got the logistics districts, the industrial districts, extraction, food, and housing. And on the map, you can see that we've got a logistics sort of point over here. It's pretty unique, at least on this map, from what I'm aware of. We've got materials, we've got some food behind that, some more materials, more food, more materials, and then we've got coal. Now, coal is, of course, going to be the resource that gives us heat. That is stored up at the top here. We've got housing, more on housing in a little bit. We've got food, we've got materials, and then we've got goods. Now, all of these districts basically produce all of these resources, and that is good. We've got a workforce up here, we've got fusion cores, and then we've got scrap. Scrap is the currency that allows us to construct districts and allows us to actually break the ice in order to build the districts in the first place. If you saw the beta, then you would see exactly what that means. So there's a whole bunch of ice there's a whole bunch of sort of area around the city that we can build on right now. But a lot of the ice, a lot of the sort of thicker snow and ice that we're going to be getting to later has to be frost broken, which means that we have to pay a scrap and a labor cost in order to deploy resources to that area to get those to get that land freed up. But once it's all frostbroken, then we can get building, which is all good and well. Yeah, so this is basically how we start off with. It's not too complicated. The stakes are not high yet, but they're definitely getting to that point. Making sure that you have a good supply of heat is absolutely one of the most important things that you can do in a game that is all about heat and survival. And this map exclusively utilizes coal as the heat source. Now, that is very important for one very specific reason. We're going to be expanding the ways that we can get heat to our people, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Probably the most interesting mechanic for me, or the most interesting mechanical change, is the way that people are handled. So we've got up in the top right-hand, or the top left-hand corner, I should say, we've got our available workers. I've already talked about that. And we've got our total population. Now, there's a bit of a disparity here. So 3,800 workers, 8,000 population. Not all of our population are working age. And that will matter, because some tough decisions will be coming down the line. But it's not only people specifically that we have to deal with. There are different categories of people. There are different city factions, or factions within the city. And I love this. So we can see right now that we have a specific faction up here. They care about certain things: progress for the glory of New London, merit forges the strongest, reason for order, order for control. And we need to balance all of these factions together, because if one of the factions ends up, rioting or kicking off, there can be a massive amount of repercussions for the city. So there's actually a whole sort of brand new sort of political law system. We need to also try and sort of negotiate, make deals with, bribe perhaps all of these sort of factions. We can tax them. As and when we want. We can promise them new laws that we want to see introduced. There's a whole bunch of different ways to try and drag people to our side, which I think is a super, super interesting mechanic of Frostpunk 2. It really is super, super interesting. Once you get a certain sort of length, certain time into the map, the game will ask you to build a council chamber. And once you've got the council chamber, then you can start those sort of negotiations. You can start the wheeling and dealing with the different factions, and you can actually start changing the society of your town. You do that through this council. There's 20 plus 65 plus 15. How many is that? 85, 100? It's 100, literally 100. There's 100 people in here, and you can pass laws to change completely the society. We can actually you can actually see up at the top here, we've got New Londoners, Frostlanders, and Stalwarts. These are the three different factions that we have in our town in New London at the moment. Now that can change, because you can get additional factions which will put additional pressure on your society. These could be, new people coming in from the cold. You could get sort of people that will break away from a certain group and join another group. All of it is very, very, very fluid. But for the first vote, you will always have a vote of confidence in your stewardship of the city, and indeed, you want to try and win that vote. It's pretty darn important. You can see at the moment 20 delegates are prepared to vote for this. There's 15 that are sort of naturally against, and there's 65 that are hesitant. Now, of course, you could just flip a coin and you could immediately sort of go to a vote. But ideally, you probably want to either pressure the delegates, in which case you toggle this button and people are going to get upset with you, or indeed you can negotiate with people. And if you negotiate with people, then you probably have to promise something that maybe you are not quite ready to sort of introduce quite yet. So you would enter the negotiation interface here, and you would choose the group of people that you want to negotiate with. In this case, whoever is recording this B-roll maybe is going to choose to negotiate with the New Londoners. Okay, and the New Londoners want a couple of different things. They want a whole bunch of edicts. They want to change worker shift patterns, etc. They require research. There's a whole bunch of different things that we can promise to people in order to get their support. But the New Londoners control 45% of the city, so if we're able to get them on side, then that's pretty darn good. And of course, we can get them to vote for or indeed vote against any sort of specific law. So a lot of the sort of political infrastructure of this game is going to be wheeling and dealing with different factions and trying to keep them happy. I will say, I really do not think that this is going to get tedious. I think this is a fantastic, fantastic management aspect of this game. When I played it, this was the bit that sort of stood out to me as probably, I think, the most interesting and maybe the most powerful if you're able to leverage it correctly. But it also really seemed like the most dangerous sort of slippery slope for your city to descend into chaos if you're not able to manage all of those sort of competing interests. Now, the different laws that you can enact in Frostpunk 2 are split into 4 different tabs. We've got survival, economy, society, and rule. And they're along the bottom here. Within those components, we've got different sort of categories about what we can introduce and what we can't introduce. But the point is that all of the different factions have got their own specific preferences on the type of laws that they want introduced. And indeed, you're going to have to balance each of their competing interests in order to make sure that nobody actually gets too upset. Now, if we click on, for example, food additives, you can see that it is supported by a specific faction. This is the impact that it's going to have. Food output per capita is marginally increased. We can also add chemicals if we want to. That would be another option, but that would presumably upset a different number of people. There we go, and be supported by a different number of people. So chemical additives, because there is in effect, a natural majority for it, we would be able to immediately enact it. And you're able to enact a law every 10 weeks. I really like this mechanic. I think it is one of the strongest, most interesting in Frostpunk 2 for sure. So, out with the sort of political mechanics, you have got the logistics mechanics. Building a logistics district has to be done on this specific little resource. It's pretty substantial, the size that it needs to be. But if you build it, then it is going to allow you to explore the world. I will say, by the way, just there, we saw the impact of promising something specific to a different faction. So, for example, promise the stalwarts kept. The stalwarts are delighted you kept their word. They now look upon your rule more positively and consider you a leader with integrity. So this little bar that is around the faction has gone up. You can actually see that these chumps over here, not a big fan of the way that the city is being run. These guys, they're okay with me. These guys, they love me. They absolutely love me. And the policies in place. Anyway, back to logistics. Logistics is the most important aspect of this game. And it works pretty much like the sort of exploration mechanic in Frostpunk 1, and indeed, in a lot of sort of city builders that are like this. There's a whole bunch of different locations that we are able to explore, and we're able to send out our scouts basically to figure out what the heck is going on. We utilize these logistics points, which basically are set by the number or by the size of the district in New London. And the more that we get, the more expeditions that we can launch at a certain time. And we need to have a certain number of logistics points in order to launch the expeditions. Anyway, the point of this is that there is a whole big wide world to explore, and in the sort of demo that I was sort of shown, it was not a huge amount of world that we got to see. However, something very interesting did happen. Now, this is where I want to say very specifically, if you want to experience Frostpunk 2 without knowing anything, then I would advise that you probably do not want to watch this next bit, because this next bit of the video, I am going to explain, again, another super interesting mechanic that we have not seen before. It is a mechanic that was not present in the beta, as far as I'm aware, and it is going to be, I believe, one of the core gameplay elements of Frostpunk 2. So be warned, if you want to go in blind, everything that I've said thus far, it pales, I think, in comparison to what I'm about to show you. Okay, you have been warned. Frostpunk 2 has colonies in. You can actually build entire secondary cities in order to help supply New London with a whole bunch of additional resources. The old Dreadnought is the location of a crashed boat, and it's sort of set across this ravine. Now, actually, on a very technical basis, this will probably be your first interaction with Frostpunk 2 because the tutorial level is sort of set here. But let's disregard that for the moment. This is unbelievably cool. So as you can see, there is only one single faction down at the bottom of the screen, and these are the colonists. These are colonists that are going to be settling in this colony, and the entire point of this, at least on this specific mission, is to have an oil supply of 50 units going back to New London. How cool is that? And of course, how cool is it that all of the sort of stuff that, you know, the idea of having a colony brings with it? I mean, what is going to happen in the future? Is this colony going to go rogue if you upset the people living here? What if everybody dies here? What's that going to mean for the implications of New London? There is so much sort of tied in with this colony, and I am just so unbelievably excited to see what the heck happens. Getting an extraction district up and running, making sure that you're able to send all of the resources back in time. I have absolutely no idea what this whole sort of colony management element is going to mean for the game later on. We were just shown a very sort of contained section, but the point is, this is possible. Now, we're only seeing one colony. What does that mean? What does that mean in the future? Is there going to be more colonies? Are there going to be other frost cities with their own colonies? I have absolutely no idea, but I'm so unbelievably ready to find out what the heck happens. Look at that. We just flicked back between the new colony and New London, which is where everything sort of happens. I'm really worried, in the future, what happens when we grow reliant on the oil that is being shipped in from our brand new colony. What is that going to mean when all the oil sort of dries up? Are we going to have to find a new colony location? What's going to happen to the people? I mean, honestly, it's fantastic. I can't wait to see what it means. I mean, wow. I am so unbelievably excited for this game. It's coming out in July, so get it wishlisted if you haven't already. It is it's like top 5 list. Is it second most wishlisted, third most wishlisted game on Steam at the moment? It's absolutely bananas. I can really see how amazing this game is going to be. I really can. The quality and the finish on a product. The product that I saw, which isn't even finished, is exceptional. I can say hand on heart that I am genuinely excited and ready to play Frostpunk 2. And it cannot come soon enough. Look at that. We're actually arranging sort of trades between the old Dreadnought and New London. The implications of this are phenomenally interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens. It's going to be so unbelievably interesting, that's for darn sure. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think. Frostpunk 2, are you excited? I absolutely am. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be hanging around in the comments to see if I can answer any of your questions about Frostpunk 2. There is so much more to this game that I didn't even talk about. Plus, there was an entirely other game which I haven't spoken about, which is the Altars, which was the other game that I played whilst I was there, which is also phenomenal. Any questions down in the comments? Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you've got any questions about Frostpunk 2. But for now, and for me, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you ever so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye.